Welcome to Bringing Back the Wild. In each episode, Mike Arnold explores how science, tradition, and hands-on conservation come together to protect the wild places and wildlife we care about. Your host, Mike Arnold, is a professor of genetics, a lifelong hunter, and a conservation biologist. Mike dives into the science and stories behind bringing wildlife species back and keeping the wild places wild. Sponsors of Bringing Back the Wild are Dallas Safari Club, conserving wildlife, engaging the public, ensuring the future. Lifeform Taxidermy, guardian of the hunter's dreams. Zambezi Delta Safaris, protecting wildlife, empowering communities, and defining adventure. Royal Outfitters UK, tradition in the field and excellence in the hunt. Choctaw Hunting Lodge, native land, exceptional wildlife, unforgettable hunts. Now here's your host, Mike Arnold.
Welcome back to Bringing Back the Wild. Today we have a really special guest, Governor Kelly Armstrong from North Dakota. Kelly is DSC PAC Bull Elephant Award winner. The Bull Elephant Award, it's given to legislators at both the federal and state levels who have continually supported DSC's mission. Winners are chosen because they have consistently spent their careers as advocates of legislative efforts in support of ethical, sustainable hunting. Governor Armstrong was also in the House of Representatives at the federal level for North Dakota. So welcome, Governor Armstrong.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. You're a passionate hunter. I've heard you speak twice now about your passions. But tell the listeners a little bit about how you became a hunter.
If anybody knows Western North Dakota, by the way, you should. It's the birthplace of modern conservation. That's where Teddy Roosevelt came to Medora, North Dakota, after his wife and his mother died on the same day. And the Elkhorn Ranch in Medora, North Dakota is where he mourned, where he came up with the national park system, modern conservation. We owned a ranch. And by ranch, I mean, my dad's been in the oil business my whole life, which means we hired a guy who knew how to ranch. And we ran 6 miles north of there. And I grew up chasing mule deer and speed goats around the Badlands with a stick and a string. My dad and my dad's best friend took me hunting whenever I could go. And it's just something that's always been, I think spot and stock bow hunting is a real good lesson in patience and a real good lesson in failure.
And humility.
And very much. But we had grouse, we had pheasants. This is a mixed bag and you figure out pretty quick. Go outside and do things. It's a lot of fun. I love training bird dogs. During the heart of the pheasant boom, when we moved back to Western North Dakota, I had buddies who ran a hunting pheasant guide operation and they had a lodge, but they also had so many birds that they would run day hunts. And at the same time, you'd have these oil field service guys up from Louisiana or Texas or wherever. And I wasn't very good at going to the lodge and making sure everybody was fed, but I had a really good lab and a really good English pointer. So you had 5 guys that wanted to do a quick down and dirty day hunt. I was their guy. I was literally guiding pheasant hunting 5 days a week.
I do want to back up for a moment. North Dakota is not known for being much more than flat. You even say that.
Yeah.
So why in the world did you start with a bow instead of a rifle? Now, I'm not saying you don't hunt with a rifle, but you do emphasize that you love archery.
Yeah. 1, you could do it early. 2, my dad shot an old recurve, not an old recurve, but he'd make his own arrows. It was something we did in our backyard. We lived a little outside of town, so he had a target set up. My dad loved archery hunting. North Dakota has really cool seasons. The bow season opens Labor Day and ends essentially the first Saturday after the first full week in January. There's no time off. So you can hunt from the time school starts until the time after New Year's Eve that year. And we had a lot of antelope, a lot of mule deer. We had good whitetails too. At that time, I liked chasing stuff around more than sitting in a tree stand. But you started doing it because I think I shot my first rabbit with my bow when I was 6 or 7 years old.
So fast forwarding then, there sounded almost like a bitterness about your sheep last night.
No. So you talk about the Bull Elephant Award. I have 2 buddies that I hunt with all over the world. And last year they finished off their Grand Slam we were all on a hunt in Alberta, and I said, they got their Grand Slam of sheep. I got the Bull Elephant Award. I've got a desert. I've got a doll. I've got a stone. I've spent a lot of time in Alberta with people who have become very good friends trying to find a bighorn. And the Bull Elephant Award was a tremendous honor. I'm not going to lie to anybody listening. The Grand Slam of sheep would have been cooler if I had to choose one or the other. But we all decided we wanted to do the mountain hunts, and we're all busy. We all have kids. We all have jobs, and we just made it a priority to get it done. And they got lucky. Bighorn hunting's tough. 2 reasons I really like it is, one, in my line of work, it is great to get to unplug from your phone for 10, 12 days. My chief of staff can get a hold of me on my Garmin GPS. My wife can get a hold of me on my Garmin GPS. And I have a sat phone for emergencies. But getting in the mountains and unplugging for 12 days is its own reward. And then the other answer is we like to meet people. That's my favorite part about coming here. I don't book hunts at these anymore. I go see guys I've already hunted with that I don't get to talk to enough, and people have become lifelong friends.
You mentioned Africa, but have you hunted for a volley yet in the mountains over there?
I have not. I've done 2 hunts in the East Cape in South Africa, and then I've done 2 in the northern part of South Africa. First one was a bow hunt. I've shot a cape with my bow. That was pretty cool. The first animal I ever shot was a sable. I tell people they're all awesome, right? Mm-hmm. First time you go to whoever you're hunting with and say, I want to take real mature animals, the good representation of the species conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And you shouldn't care if it's a blessed buck or an impala or a wildebeest or a water buck or a leshway. First of all, they all look cool. None of them look like they're from North Dakota, and you should experience it and have a lot of fun with it.
Let's dive a little bit into your job. Why did you get into politics? What was your motivation? I'm sure there's more than one.
Yeah, so I was in student government like when I was in high school, and then when I was in college. And then I had this weird career track that was a sidetrack. I was a criminal defense attorney and a public defender for 10 years. And I actually got into politics in North Dakota. I think the way a lot of guys get into politics, I got mad about an issue. I testified in front of the state legislature on a bill, and I thought they were wrong and I was right. Turns out they disagreed with me. And so instead of complaining about it, I ran for the state senate. North Dakota's every other year is for 80 days, the state legislature meets. So it truly is more like what I think our founders envisioned legislative government. You go to Bismarck, North Dakota for 80 days every 2 years, then you go home and you work in your community, you participate in your community, you do all of that. So you didn't have to give up your day job to be a politician. I ran for the state senate, and through a lot of happy accidents, I ended up getting elected to Congress and then elected to be governor. But I got involved in it, I think, the same way most people do. They got upset about something. Instead of just complaining, I ran for office.
Did you have a desire when you started out with the issue that you saw that you felt like you could change? Is that why you went to the federal level as well?
No, there were a lot of different reasons why that happened. One, our senator, who used to be our member, so North Dakota only has 1 congressman, so they run statewide. Every member of Congress, by the way, thinks they have statewide name ID. Turns out in North Dakota, you actually do. He chose to get into the Senate race. He did it really late in the process because he had a very safe House seat and he was going to be in a very tough Senate race. And he had the courage to go take on a Democratic incumbent senator. We had a lot of people who could run for Congress. We just didn't have a lot of people who could stand up a campaign in about 48 hours. I had a lot of people reach out, talk to my wife, and we decided it was the right time to try and do it, and ended up spending 6 years in D.C.
And remind me, because I don't know this, did you immediately run for governor right after that?
So Governor Burgum, who is now Secretary of the Interior, we all were basically assuming he was going to run for a 3rd term. And he decided to run for president. And again, we have a lot going. I have 2 teenagers at home. I'd spent 6 years in D.C. dealing with every fight I thought that mattered out there. But I'm not sure how many of them we won. It's sometimes you get on the plane on the way home and you're like, why did I care about this stuff so bad this week? North Dakotans don't care if we pass a rule off the floor of the House. And so it just was a really good opportunity. Same thing, went home, talked to my wife, and we made the call in about 12 hours and announced 48 hours later.
So why are you so passionate about conservation?
I'm going to start at the most basic level. North Dakota is an ag and energy state. We feed and fuel the world. That's what we do. And when you spend 6 years at a policy side, the people who make policy on our food supply, on our energy supply, on how we do those things, and we do all that in the same place. We shoot deer, pheasants, ducks, grouse, partridge. Every oil that exists in North Dakota, just about every single one is either in cropland or pasture land. And so getting this outside group of people who have no idea what it's like to live, work, and play in Western North Dakota, telling us how to do things really bothers me. And particularly, I think in the oil industry, it's important, but I think it's even more important in the agriculture industry. You talk about sustainable agriculture. Every single farmer I know needs to make money on a quarter every year. And more importantly, they're the best stewards of the land, and it's their dirt. They own it. That's how they make their money. And I don't care if you're coming from Eastern North Dakota to Western North Dakota, if you're coming from Wisconsin to North Dakota. If you're not working with ag producers, you're never going to have habitat. You're never going to have conservation. We invite you into what I think is the best kept wildlife secret in the world, which is North Dakota, particularly Western North Dakota. And we are going to make money on that place. We're going to build our communities off that place. We're going to create opportunities for the next generation of North Dakotans to live in that place. And we're still going to shoot pheasants, and we're still going to hunt deer, and we're still going to catch walleyes. And we're going to do it the way we want to do it, not the way somebody in a cubicle in Washington, D.C. tells us how to do it.
Francis and I grew up in Abilene, Texas, and we had a pump jack on our 8 acres. And as far as I know, Mama and Daddy didn't get a cent off of it. The mineral rights were long gone, but it was always there. And we raised our quarter horses, had our hay that we were making in these fields. But we were also surrounded by sorghum fields and cotton fields and the dryland farming. And like you say, those folks had a better idea of stewardship because there was an interaction between a lot of different quote unquote industries. We had the oil industry, we had the petrochemical industry, chemicals they were using with their farmland. They had to be careful with those. Then they also had to do all of their farming and make money off of it. And I don't know how in the world they made money off of it. I'll be honest. In West Texas, you'd have a hailstorm and they'd lose every bit of sorghum they had. And that happened regularly. And these guys farming there, I just have so much respect for them.
So Abilene, Texas, and North Dakota are actually similar, right? Like you have probably more animal agriculture, something we're trying to get more and more of Dakota. And some of that is just access to public land for leasing and stuff. But you guys have ag, you have energy, you have cattle. And yeah, it's tough. Cattle prices are good now. They weren't great for a long time. But the other answer, which I think everybody gets wrong, particularly people who aren't in this space, working lands create diversity. Like my biggest fight when we had CRP on our farm was trying to get the federal government to recognize after 8-9 years, the brome grass chokes out all the other grass. We just wanted to reseed it how it originally was because that's where you get the bugs. That's where you get the nesting. And we couldn't get them to do it. Not everybody has the ability to do it like my dad and I do, which is we just took our land out of contract and did it ourselves because we wanted the pheasants, we wanted the deer. The left's version of land stewardship is don't touch it, don't use it at all, which is the wrong scientific approach. Because if you don't do rotational grazing, you lose that habitat. You lose what makes it good. It's not good for soil health. It's not good for the best cropper. Jimmy Stevens, who ranched on our ranch for 100 years before my dad bought it, was doing carbon sequestration in Western North Dakota before anybody called it that. All he knew is it grew better grass for his cattle. And also turned out to be pretty good for grouse, partridge, pheasant, and everything else that ran around there.
What you're talking about, Governor Armstrong, is that this has to make money. And it has to fit together for this biodiversity that I see in West Texas and you see in North Dakota for it to work. You said it last night, or someone's going to plow all of those hedgerows down. They're going to plow up to the edge of the roads.
I would too if my inputs were going up
Exactly.
exponentially and commodity prices were going down. And this is how I make a living, how I pay for my kids' baseball. And I want to turn this farm over to my kids to be able to keep it in the family for generations. Farmers wake up in the morning right now, and there's a lot of things going on in their life and a lot of headwinds that aren't great. But you also have to recognize, and I always say this because I'm so proud to be the governor, North Dakota is a big reason why the United States is one, if not two, of the only countries in the world that is both food and energy secure. That's a tremendous strategic advantage from a geopolitical, how we deal in the 21st century. China can't feed its own people. They don't have the bandwidth to do it. We have the cheapest, most secure, healthiest food supply in the history of the world right now. That's just accurate. We have more abundance for energy, Texas, Midland, Permian, Bakken. We have found this new shale revolution that has allowed the United States to export energy instead import it from our strategic adversaries. We talk about it because we care about hunting and we care about being able to experience that. We've never been great at nation building in a uniform, but we're pretty good at the soft power and dealing with helping developing countries with cheap and ready food. But if you're going to ensure that, then you better make sure your farmers can survive the ebbs and flows in the marketplace, because otherwise we become a consumer-based society where we import everything. Hasn't worked great for a lot of people in Europe, and they're having some strategic conversations right now about who their reliance is on a lot of these different issues. So if we ever get on Iran, I'll tell you how Richard Nixon wanting to win the re-elect in the Iowa caucus changed the snow goose migration.
How did that happen?
Put about 1 billion acres into corn. This had nothing to do with ethanol at the time, right? Nothing to do with ethanol, but it had to do with high fructose corn syrup. And Richard Nixon was nothing if not a paranoid politician, right? He always ran like he was 30 points behind. So we put about 1 billion acres into corn in Iowa. Fast forward to the early 2000s. And now you go to the RFS and they permit like 13 or 14 ethanol plants in the Southeast United States. What did they used to plant in the Southeast United States? Cotton. And now they put a bunch of acreage that used to be in cotton into corn in the Southeast United States. Rice prices weren't particularly great. So a lot of rice fields north of Corpus Christi and in Texas came out of rice and went into cotton. You know what snow geese don't eat? Cotton. They used to winter in corn. If you look at this is how migrations work. I spend a lot of time talking to duck hunters. We have the prairie pothole region. And between weather and a lot of canola planting in Canada, you can feel a shift because ducks don't particularly like canola, and they grow a lot of canola in southern Canada. And so you can almost feel duck shift based on how farmers are making a living. If there's ever would be a case study in artificial government interaction in the marketplace and long-term consequences, it would be corn. It's hog prices, chicken prices, it's feed, it all exists in that space. And the ramifications of government policy can have an effect, quite frankly, where snow geese winter.
That's interesting, thinking at more of a macro scale, I guess you would call it, of the dominoes falling.
Sure, 30, 40, 50 years, how the economics of farming affect wildlife in such a meaningful way.
Yeah. It can be looked at as a positive as well for the population of snow geese.
Yeah.
Agriculturally, they're getting an awful lot of food.
Yeah. I just use Southwest North Dakota, like where I used to grow up hunting. There's a reason a lot of land went into CRP, and CRP was never designed to be a habitat program. It was designed to take marginal acreage out of production. It had a really great benefit of becoming fantastic for ducks. I don't think it was particularly great for partridge, but it was great for pheasants, great for whitetails, great for ducks. It was really bad for small towns because when you take all that land out of production, you lose all those ancillary businesses that are engaged in production, which is the small town equipment shop, the cafes. So you ended up having more of that economic activity driven by hunters and sportsmen than you did by the people who were farming. The other difference is we have 90-day corn now. You can grow corn. When I grew up, you couldn't grow corn, so it was wheat. Now you can make money on 90-day corn, and there's an ethanol plant 100 miles away, so your expenses for getting your product to market go down. It changes the way in which people do that. So we back into saying, how do we do responsible agriculture and create habitat? And by that, I mean, want the farmers to do that. We're running a program right now that takes marginal acreage out of production, with a farmer opts into it, run it through the state, not the feds, and make it flexible enough so you have that drainage that comes through your field where you get your tractor stuck every couple years. Your inputs are probably higher than what you get off in those marginal 20 acres. I want them to not spend the money on the inputs. I want them to put cover crop in there. And then all of a sudden you've created winter habitat for pheasants when it's 30 below out, because if you don't create those micro habitats, they'll freeze to death. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from farmers and ranchers that are excited about the program. Because without them, sportsmen don't have anywhere to hunt in North Dakota.
Step into steep valleys and rolling hills thick with oak, pine, and persimmon. Whitetails bed here. Turkeys strut here. Bears roam here. Choctaw Hunting Lodge doesn't manufacture an experience, it preserves one. So when I think of North Dakota, I think of pheasant.
Yeah.
How important is hunting, both financially and also for conservation?
93% of North Dakota is private land. It's also probably the best mixed bag waterfowl hunting in the lower 48 states. It's very important, but I view it in a different way. We've grown 20% in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, we had 637,000 people. We just went over 800,000. That's an oil boom in Western North Dakota. It's been pretty good run in agriculture. Eastern communities are growing. I view it as this is how we keep our next generation in North Dakotans here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I've done it too, right? Being a senior in high school means you want to leave. That's just part of it. Seniors in New York City think New York City's boring. But all of a sudden you have 2 kids and you're married and Broadway plays and 5-star restaurants aren't really a part of your life anymore. But good schools, safe communities, all of those things. But if you like to hunt and fish and you're from North Dakota, getting you to come back before you're 30 is a huge issue when I have 13,000 open jobs from one end of the state to the other. If you like to do those things, North Dakota is about as great a place in the world to live. So how do you drive the economic activity? I don't even think it's so much about that. It's about grandmas and grandpas get to see their kids every day and not just at Thanksgiving and Easter. And those smaller communities, when we talk small towns, North Dakota's small towns. We're talking 500 people small towns that are still vibrant, really cool little small towns. But they don't survive if the next generation of farmers and ranchers want to do that work. And one of the ways you can convince people to come back is create habitat, create good opportunities for deer hunting or pheasant hunting or duck hunting. And so we view it very much in a recruitment and a retention tool. And I graduated from high school in 1995. And if you lived in Western North Dakota in 1995, there weren't any opportunities. The Bakken, nobody was even talking about it. Cattle prices were terrible. Like I said, we didn't ethanol plants and the agriculture industry just came out of the 80s farm crisis and nothing was great. So we lost a whole generation in North Dakotans, not because they wanted to leave, but my age and my generation in North Dakota left because the opportunities weren't there. So I still remember that. It is a very different place now. We're getting younger, we're growing, and I want to make sure we continue to create that stuff. But we also have to grow in a way that doesn't lose our traditions of hunting and fishing. And the second part to all of this for us is access. Trying to figure out how we get private landowners to want to let people hunt because they don't have to. It's their land, it's their dirt. But we lose the hunting tradition if the regular, everyday North Dakotan doesn't have an opportunity to go out and have a shot at a limited ducks or shooting a couple pheasants or getting a deer tag. And we have bad winters. So when we have bad winters in a row, plus EHD, which we have had quite a bit of, you lose an entire generation of deer hunters if there's no habitat, there's no deer, and all of a sudden you're on a 7-8 year draw before you get your deer tag. It's a pretty tough run from 15 to 23. You kind of form how you're going to enjoy recreating your entire life. And if you've never had the opportunity to do those things, that's something that people pick it up later. But I'm very conscious of, I want 15, 16-year-old kids learning to hunt and fish because that's when you develop a passion for it.
There are places in Africa where the land still sets the rules. In Mozambique's Catata 11, 500,000 acres stretch along the edge of the Zambezi River, untamed, unbroken, and unapologetically wild. This is the heart of the Marameo ecosystem where we measure tracking not in hours but in days, with success earned, never guaranteed. Here, 4 of the big 5 share ground with a rich diversity of plains game. It's not a managed landscape, it's a living one. Weather, wind, spoor, and patience still matter. But Catata 11 endures for one reason: funding of conservation by those who value it most. Safari dollars don't disappear, they stay here, supporting anti-poaching units staffed by local Sena villagers, resident scientists monitoring wildlife, and helicopters that patrol the concession from above. This is conservation through hunting, practiced at scale in one of Africa's last true wildernesses. This is what it looks like when the wild still decides. How long have you been doing the youth pheasant hunt? Is that something you've always done?
So I've always done, my two favorite hunting weekends a year are youth deer season and youth pheasant season. So I've only been governor for a year. And my family's kids have now all timed out of the youth seasons. I've been guiding youth hunters for a very long time, but it's usually with my kids, my brother's kids, my cousins, my friends. So we've been doing it just on our own forever. This year, we ran it officially from the governor's office. Trap is a really fast-growing sport, which is fantastic. So we brought some kids from the trap teams that were still young enough to do the youth hunt and just made it a day. And we did it at my farm and got a bunch of landowners in the area to help volunteer. It's amazing how fast somebody says yes when it's for kids. And we just had a really good time.
And you do that with deer hunters as well.
So yeah, and youth deer is almost always whitetail does. Nobody's chasing inches. You're not shooting big bucks, but we have some really good sets on our place that are pretty confined. I spend a lot of time talking to Dad. Calm down. I promise you, your son or your daughter is way more excited than you are. If your heart rate's at 150, theirs is at plaid. You just keep everything under control. We're going to get this done. You can set it up what most shots are inside of 100 yards. Try and give them the best experience possible.
I know that you're a very busy human being, so I'm going to let you go. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our listeners about things that you're hoping to see at the government level over the next little bit?
I will tell you, I think there's a couple things, and I think particularly for people who listen to your podcast and people who do this in general, it's not anything specifically based on policy. It's based on who participates in the body politic. It's a lot easier to talk to somebody about these issues if they live these issues than it is to convince somebody who's never done this stuff that you're right on policy. I said it last night and I mean it. We have far too many people that are becoming biologists or game wardens or all of that have never actually done this for fun. We need more people who participate in the outdoors to run for office, to work for people who run for office. Spending 6 years in DC, and you talk about diversity and you talk about equity and you talk about inclusion, I think one of the things we have to do a better job is viewpoint diversity. I want a lot more Midwest kids working for members of Congress. I want a lot more people whose idea of the outdoors isn't Central Park. Now, Central Park's beautiful, by the way, but if everybody who works for DC, works in Washington, works in government, comes from the East Coast or comes from that kind of stuff, you don't get a little bit of that ranch kid from Nebraska who ends up being the deputy chief of staff for a member of Congress from Georgia. That viewpoint matters in those offices. And it always makes me a little sad because I've been a life member of Dallas Safari Club before I ever was in Congress. It makes me a little sad when I walk around here and I just don't see any of my colleagues here. This is not something they prioritize. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of good work that comes here. Most people I know who really the outdoors don't have the time or the patience for DC, which I understand because they're smart people, they're successful people, they're hardworking people. But we need more of those people to actually want to engage in this process. And until they do, you spend a lot of time convincing elected officials who don't really love this stuff, love it. And by the way, you could find 5 other policymakers that actually love this stuff and we'd all disagree on something, whether it's capping out-of-state duck licenses, flooding corn. I use ducks because they seem to be the thing. And then the other answer is, if hunting truly does turn into a pay-to-play and that's the only way to do it, we're going to lose it. We have to make sure that we make this stuff as available to as many people as possible.
Governor Armstrong, thank you so much for being with us today. This is such a great opportunity. Loved your talk last night. Thank you again for being with us. Good luck on everything you're doing in North Dakota. Thank you for being such a great voice for all of us who do, like you said, love hunting, love fishing, love being outdoors. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Bringing Back the Wild. For more stories from the field, conservation-driven articles, and Mike's books, visit MikeArnoldOutdoors.com. Until next time, keep bringing back the wild.